Andrew McFarland here with StartAJuiceBar.com, your trusted resource for all things juice bar oriented. And today I want to talk about the pros and cons of the juice industry and opening your own juice business. The reason I want to bring this up is because I think a lot of times we focus on everything that's beautiful in the ideal world when you're successful. But we don't often talk about the downside, what happens if you're not successful, and what are the major challenges. And so I want to really create balance, because I know that a lot of times for people it's their first business, and for first-time entrepreneurs, we don't have experience. And so when you don't have experience, you really need to look to other people to give you some perspective. And so hopefully this video will do that. Now, for me personally, I like to start with the cons. And so we will talk about the negative aspects, and then we'll leave on a positive note with what the benefits of having this kind of business might be. So the first thing I want to mention is that, as I said before, most people who start this business have never had a business before, and they get into the juice industry because they probably have you probably have a feeling for health, and you want to help people, and also you feel like it might be a pretty easy business to start. Well, not to burst your bubble, but it's not as easy as most people think. It can be reasonably complex. Now, it's not as complex as opening a full-blown restaurant, but it could be close depending on the scale of your operation, and also depending on how you process the juice. Now, if you want a cold press juice, it's going to be very different than if you want to make juices to order. And if you're cold pressing juice, it's going to make your operation a lot more complex. So I just want to put that in your ear so that you can take heed. And this doesn't mean don't do it, because obviously I'm someone who's standing here and was able to do it and found a lot of success with zero experience, but I've also seen other people go in and out of the business because they think it's a lot easier than it really is. So the next thing that I want to talk about is cost. Similar to the first thing, is I think that a lot of times people have no idea how much it costs to start a juice bar or any other juice business. And it usually costs a little bit more than you think, possibly a lot more than you think. Because if you don't have any experience raising money for a business, and really the scope of a kind of business, most of the time because of our optimism, we think it's going to be a lot cheaper than it is. Now, that's not always, it's not a blanket statement for everyone, and also be aware that depending on where you live, it's not going to cost the same for you if you're in probably middle America as it will cost if you're in a major city, because naturally the rents are more depending on where you are. So do your research, talk to other people. Obviously, you can always send me an email, and I'll do my best to guide you and to give you some perspective on what the true cost will be. The next thing we want to talk about is it's a risk. All businesses are risky, and people do go out of business. People with great intentions, great passion, but don't have the proper strategy or information, or they're not properly financed, go out of business. I'm going to do another video, and I'll put a link below to the 7 reasons why people in the juice industry go out of business. But just in general, just know that it is a risk. And I was actually, unfortunately, had a former employee who had done a lot of consulting for different juice bars in the area and had worked for me for a considerable amount of time, and thought, you know what, it was his passion to start his own location, and so he went and attempted to start a juice bar in the area, and unfortunately after 4 months he went out of business because he didn't really realize how much went into running this kind of business, and just overlooked a lot of the importance of a lot of things like managing the money and the marketing and certain nuances of interactions with customers that I feel ultimately put him out of business. So you know, it's a lesson learned, and I hope it doesn't discourage him to not try again, but I just say this because I have seen it. Just as many, you know, like I've told a lot of you, 90% of food service businesses go out, aren't successful because of a number of reasons, but it's important to really do your research, and if you're watching these kinds of videos, I just commend you, because it is part of why I created this channel, because this information was not out there when I started my business, and I really, really wish it was. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on is that it could, and very likely, especially in the first phase, take up a lot of your time. it's like I don't have children personally, but it's what I imagine having children might be like, because it's a 24-hour-a-day responsibility. You might have people, as I have, call you at 6 a.m., 4 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all hours of the day with issues that pertain to your business. Now, if this is your number one priority, you're going to have to address these things. I remember at one point, I probably hadn't been in the store and worked in the kitchen for over a year, and then I got a message that one of my opening managers got sick, couldn't go to the store. There was no one else that I could really connect to at that time to go in and fill in for them. So I had to show up and go and make the drinks, and I was probably the least efficient person in the space, because even though I'd made the recipes and done everything, all the systems and operations, it had been so long that I kind of forgot how to do a lot of things. So, but even then, I had to show up. So even if you get to the point where your business is completely hands-off, you are the last barrier of entry, or you're the last resource. So if all else fails, you're going to have to show up and make sure that your business is running, and it could be a lot of responsibility in the beginning. The next thing we'll move into now, we'll move on to upside. So what are some of the beautiful aspects of having this kind of business, and what can you look forward to in a great scenario? So the first thing I want to say is that you get to drink juice all day. Now that is, in some ways I'm joking, but I'm also serious, because a lot of people will start this kind of business because they want to be healthier. They want to overall just feel better and be in environments that are healthier. So when you have healthy food and juice surrounding you all day, it's really kind of effortless. You don't have to make a big effort because there's so much abundance of this kind of product around you. So that is an upside, and definitely if you want to get healthier, this is a way that you can do that. Now you have to obviously balance that with how much rest you're getting, depending on how much work you're doing, but just in terms of consuming healthy foods, it'll be easy. The next thing we can talk about is the financial gain. Yes, when you have this kind of business, in the event that you're successful, you can make quite a bit of money, even just from one location. For me in 2014, from one location, we were able to net, meaning the money that after expenses and everything was put in my pocket, was close to $200,000, and that's from one location. So depending on where you are, obviously, the numbers will vary. Because once again, if you're in a place where there's not a lot of traffic, not a lot of people, you may not make as much money, and your expenses may be less, so maybe you don't need to make as much. But in general, I just want to touch on that because it's important. This is a business. You are starting a business to make money and to obviously have other benefits in the community, but you want to know that if you're going to invest your own money or someone else's money, that you really are going to have some financial upside. So yes, it is possible, and you can do well. The next thing is that, which I feel is even more important than the money that you make, is how you're actually sincerely helping people. I can't tell you how many times I've had people walk into the juice bar and say, I just got diagnosed with the terminal illness, and I'm deciding to do a juice fast to see if that will help me in my situation. And that's just humbling and a profound responsibility that you're the person that's going to be making the juice for them to overcome this illness, or potentially overcome, depending on what happens. And when people change their lifestyle because of the existence of your space, there's no, for me, amount of money that you can give me that will replace that. Because to me, at the end of the day, that's why I do what I do. That's why I make these videos, because I know that the more successful juice bars that exist, the healthier the planet's going to be. And to me, that's just a beautiful thing. So know that when you start this business, that's a really powerful aspect and something that you can really look forward to. The next thing that I want to look at is that the next upside, I would say, is that just because this is an entry-level business, the process of becoming successful is fulfilling in itself. It's actually getting to a place where you're taking on a challenge, you're doing something you've never done before, and you find that you're able to be successful. It's a powerful thing, because for me, I'd never run this kind of business, as I've said, and to get to the place where we opened up multiple locations, and just to see times where I thought we would never make it and that we would have to close the doors maybe a month from now, and be able to just take that time to consider strategies and make some shifts and arrangements and to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and actually to get there. There's no words on what that will do for your life, and just having a goal, moving towards it, and accomplishing it. So know that the feeling that you get is really it's unspeakable. So the last thing that I'll say in terms of positive notes is that sometimes people don't realize when they're starting a business, but because you're in the health environment, naturally you're going to attract amazing people. People who are into their health. They're into their health because they love themselves. And when you are in a business that is really about self-care, self-love, you just attract awesome, fun, great people. Your customers are usually a lot more forgiving. And this, once again, depends on where you are and all these things, but it's very different than having a bar, let's say, right? People who go get drunk in a bar usually are in a different place and maybe a little bit more rowdy. The environment's louder, all these things. And when you're just in a juice bar and you're smelling fresh ginger and fresh lemon, the environment is just a beautiful environment to be in, and the interactions you have with people and how much faith and love and that people give you just for providing this service, it's profound. So those are the pros and cons, and as always, wishing you guys much success. This is Andrew McFarland from StartAJuiceBar.com signing out. If you have any other questions, you can always email me at Andrew@StartAJuiceBar.com. And yes, wishing you well and hope to see you guys soon.